Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare.
All right, well, happy Wednesday. We are actually with the last teaching of the year here. The next two will fall on Christmas and on New Year's. So this will be the closeout of 2024, and we'll begin anew in 2025. As I mentioned last week, we're going to move into a new text and go through the meditations on stages of the path to enlightenment, Lama Chenmo meditations. And it'll be a really, I think, wonderful opportunity to unpack each specific meditation, have a nice discussion about the topics, the key points, what is to be realized, and approach it from both a very traditional perspective as well as how it applies in our modern Western life, and approach it from the different types of motivations that we might have. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I think this whole next year we'll be able to really get into practicality of the whole stages of the path to enlightenment. And so tonight we'll be just kind of wrapping up the third volume of the 3 volumes that we've gone through. And I also wanted to just be clear that any lingering questions, so a lot of times there's these kind of Buddhist questions we have that didn't quite have come up in the context of conversation, and but there might be something that's been lingering about your practice or teaching up to this point. Anything that you might have, love to make sure we have a discussion there and see if we can be helpful at all. But just to begin with, let me share with you the book that we'll be taking a look at. And I would encourage you to put up the cover. How to Meditate on the Stages of the Path. This is a revised edition of How to Meditate by, sorry, I'm trying to move this little thing out of my way here. Yeah. Kathleen McDonald. And in this text, she really is trying to bring an approach that will have both the very traditional practices as well as how we can really apply it to life that we currently have. So just showing that to you so you can see what the book looks like if you'd like to get it. What would be ideal, I think, would be to get that book and over the next couple of weeks, dig into it a bit and cover all these preliminary chapters, because we are pretty much going to begin with part 3 in meditations on the initial level. So anything that you can read prior to that, that'd be great. When I have questions, we can answer those. And I'm going to bring it back. So to this point, though, Samsara, Nirvana, Buddha nature, we, I think, have had a few rich discussions on the very ultimate nature of mind, of Buddha nature itself, of liberation and what that means. And we've gotten into the deep end of the pool a bit. So rather than go down another rabbit hole of talking about non-conceptual things conceptually, the basic premise in Buddhism, which I think is just the core, and what we talked about last week, is the basic fundamental hypothesis, the principal nature of a Buddhist approach, which is that our ultimate nature is pure. It's pure. And the core root issue of samsara for us since beginningless time is a misperception of how we exist and how the world exists that we experience. And at that core, there's a very independent sense of self, right? I'm independent. I'm not Sam. I'm John. I'm drinking this hot water. As they say in Tibetan, chu sapu, hot water. And he's not drinking the water. There's water. There's a cup. I'm here. There's a computer. There's a camera. There's people here. We're all very independent, right? Separate, clear. We got that. Except none of that's accurate. Right? When we kind of start to understand where'd the water come from. Wow. And start to realize, there's water in me. And that water's probably been in many others. And that water gives life to all of us. And the water that is now pure in my cup could have been a lot of other places I would not have been so interested about. And then we start recognizing there's nothing independent about my skin. There's nothing independent about my thoughts. There's nothing independent about this cup, that arises independence upon, right? The conditions that give rise, the materials, the idea to make them, the idea to want to sell them, the people that put the time and energy into that, the artistry and so forth. And so we've had great, I think, detailed discussions understanding we actually live a very interdependent life. And there's nothing separate and independent. But that's just not how it appears. And so we've been living this way, and because of that, we've got the conditioning, the formatting imprinted on us. And Buddhism is really geared at undoing that formatting, undoing that conditioning, and more accurately understanding who you are, what your experience is. And the fundamental Buddhist principle is that the truth will set you free. You know who you are, you're free. There's no reason to create karma. There's no misperception. There's no struggle. There's no elaboration. Your primordial wisdom's pure. And so the path of Buddhism is one in which you can look at it in two different ways. The path of accumulation, we're acquiring wisdom, we're acquiring merit, we're acquiring realizations, we're growing in some way, we're nurturing that. Or we're discovering it, we're letting go. We're letting go of misperception, we're letting go of misunderstanding, we're letting go of the labels, we're letting go. And either way, as we perceive it to be accumulation or discovery, fundamentally we're doing the same thing. We're acquiring wisdom and understanding, or we're letting go of misperception, right? And it's already there. And so having said that, we have discovered that knowing this isn't always that helpful. It's a nice, interesting philosophical discussion, to walk out and get socked in the face. And then it feels pretty damn independent, and it hurts, or things don't go my way, or, the conditions ripen. Or even, I can have the best of intention to be a particular way today. I've got my good intention, gonna be patient, gonna see everyone as my dear friend, and we may completely forget that intention 2 hours later as we're driving and doing things and forgetting. And we may notice that our minds, our attention, can drift pretty quickly and can be overtaken by habit. So we had a nice retreat on Sunday and really starting to understand how powerful that habit energy is. And it just fills the space, And we're doing things on autopilot, and our minds are not even focused on what we're doing so much of the time. And the big issue is we forget. We just forget. We're caught up in doing things. We're on autopilot again. And so that conditioning is deeply entrenched. And the practices then are all about developing the skills to have a little more agency, a little more capacity to engage in my life mindfully, knowing what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, whether it's based in reality or not, whether it's supportive of and conducive to virtue or not. Is it going to be helpful or is it going to be harmful? And then, ultimately to be at some point where we are functional in a healthy way. And this is challenging, functional in a healthy way, to have what they call clear comprehension. I know what I'm doing, why I'm doing, whether it's based in reality, whether it's helpful or not. That's a pretty high degree of functionality in a moment. Am I seeing myself as independent or interdependent? Am I engaging in others, with others, not engaging with others, understanding our interdependence? Am I recognizing that I'm experiencing whoever I'm talking to in a subjective way? They're not like that. I'm experiencing them like this due to this interaction. And so to operate at that level requires some training, some practice. And so that's what we've been doing for quite a while. And I think the practices that we'll get into with the stages of Path to Awakening, very, very skillful, because they're not simply a matter of equanimity. They're much more analytical and insightful, and they cut through a lot of misunderstanding. They inspire us to live in a way that we'll feel good about and have the benefit of that behavior. And so the journey then becomes not knowing but doing. That's the rub, right? That's the big rub. And in order to do, I need to remember. In order to remember, I need to have developed some stability of my mind and some attention. And so our meditation just before we started here was this nice little shamatha, the ability to heal the mind, to be a little more present, to catch the mind when it wandered, to bring it back. And therein lies this, I think, probably the most important needed exercise that we have in our modern times. There's so much multitasking, there's so much, so many forces that are robbing us of our agency, of our skillfulness. Talk we did at CCR on effort, on joyful effort. We can see how we are being robbed of our effort, and we don't even really notice. Ever since I was talking about the simple things of like cutting and pasting, like a verification code, right? Does anybody look at the verification code, memorize it, and punch it in? Good, Laura does. I've been doing that as well. Now, I wasn't before. I was copy and paste, right? And I'm thinking, wow, I've lost. I don't know phone numbers. I don't know directions. I've been robbed of a lot of my mental capacity because it's not necessary, right? It's not necessary with GPS. It's not necessary with phone numbers in your phone. It's not necessary with, you don't even have to punch. You can say, call so-and-so, and your phone does it, right? our minds have been getting reduced, with the limited capacity to even writing letters. Remember, there's a huge amount of uh, value in the textile writing a letter, especially in cursive. It really gets the mind working in a particular way. And we sit there and think about, what are we actually doing with our minds anymore? And the more that I give up that, I'm being robbed of my capacity of effort, of capacity to have choice. I'm in a copy-paste world. I'm in an AI, fill it in, tell somebody else happy birthday kind of world. Spell check. I was bad at spelling before spell check. This did not help me at all. What does help me with spelling is writing in cursive, because you really have to think about it. And this is kind of sneaky, isn't it? It's been kind of gradually happening. We used to know people's addresses too. And so when we sit here and recognize the condition of the world that we're living in now, with these devices that are robbing us of our effort, and some people look at it as making our life easier. But what are you giving up? What am I giving up? Then where do we have the opportunity to practice cultivating our minds? To be present, to not be distracted. And that's the other thing. We have so much distraction, so much multitasking. I need to figure out how to turn some of these notifications off. There's a couple I want, like if somebody's sending me a message, but somehow I'm getting them for every news flash or bulletin that pops up. I just have silence phone. I'll take some time to figure that out. But when we think about the multitasking and the messages and the emails and the fast pace of what we do in a day now versus what we used to do in a day, when we used to come home 6 o'clock maybe, have dinner, sit around, talk a little bit, maybe a friend would pop over. There was no email, there was no, I'm not working anymore, there's nothing else to do, and the communication. We might go write a letter, we might read a book, we might have a conversation, might go check in on the neighbor, and that's not the world we live in anymore. And it's kind of sneakily, it's gone away. And then that loses, our capacity to be creative, to be thoughtful, to be connected, but it increases our distraction, and it increases a busyness instead of a stillness of our normal being at home and having an evening with your family, friends. At some point, this might turn into a pep talk. I'm shooting for that. Everybody's like, well, man, it was last talk of the year. We're going to fire them up. But it's unless we see the issues, it's really hard to see the solution, right? And so where I'm going with this is that we're entering a holiday season, and in the holiday season, that is in theory an opportunity to be connected, to offer generosity, to be thinking about others. And so during these 2 weeks, really would like to encourage people to see where we can be a little less connected in an electronic way, a little more connected in a human way, to see if we can have a little time rediscovering ourselves, as we maybe read or write or have an opportunity to engage in practice, to make sure that we have some time to meditate and have a daily shamatha practice, because that is, I think, the medicine. I think that's the medicine right now, is a shamatha practice that can help us bring this mind back present. And then I might have a choice. I might have a choice. And then to be able to engage in our lives, asking ourselves the bigger question about what's the best way to show up here, and what's helpful, what's kind, what's meaningful. And recognize that there's the pep talk. We might die tomorrow. Yeah, but that each day is this incredibly precious thing that comes once, and it's filled with opportunities. The verses that read every day, that I know some of you do that practice every day. This opportune physical form is more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. You only gain its light the once, so hard to get, so easily destroyed. It's like a lightning bolt in the sky. I was asked over the weekend about Buddhist meditations on self-esteem. And typically you don't think of too many on Buddhist meditation on self-esteem. It's all about get rid of that self. And I was thinking about that because, in our culture, it's so important to have a deep well of self-worth, and we're healing to have a healthy sense of self so that we can engage in this path. And this path can help us cultivate that as well. So where do we find these meditations on self-worth? And I would say we find it on the rare and precious human birth that we have. A rare and precious human birth favorable to Dharma practice. That in order to be here, to have had the conditions ripen for us to have the directions on the path of liberation, to have suffered enough in our lives to ask the big questions, to seek the answers, to engage in life seeking. That you have done an incredible amount of good. The merit to have a rare and precious human birth is extremely rare. And so this meditation of really understanding what you have done to be here, I think, is that meditation. That you have earned your spot. You have created the conditions from your side to have complete access to a path of liberation. And it has met with the efforts of countless others who've made that possible as well. And this is very unique. And whenever we question then, are we capable? Well, the answer is clearly yes. Or you wouldn't be here. You just wouldn't be here. And so in the when we get into the Lama, the beginning points are around this rare and precious human birth favorable to Dharma practice, the conditions that have ripened, everything that is now available. And it's so important to know that you're capable. You're absolutely capable. That's why you're here. And the capacity then is to recognize what we've already undone. what we've already overcome, how much better we are today than we once were, and that the conditions have ripened for you to be here now. Complete access. The path is already under your feet, and the directions are already in your head. So a lot of good self-worth. A lot of good self-worth. So I'm going to pause there, just check in, see if anyone had any question or comment. And next I'll move into just a little introduction to the Lama, and then maybe some thoughts about how we can wrap up the year. Loretta.
Hey, thanks, John. Listening to you talk about that, like, the morning talk, which is so hard to get and so easily destroyed. It's like a lightning bolt in the sky. I've heard this countless times, obviously, listening to the thing in the morning. And I actually, like, I listened to it and it's taken a long time for it to seep in, honestly, like the realness of that. Like it was, I think I've just had a whole lifetime of taking it for granted. So, um, but I took 3 science courses this semester, and one is neuroscience and the other one is astronomy. And learning about this stuff and then like kind of contemplating it through walking through life, it's like, wow, it really is like rare, and I don't know. I just wanted to share that because I thought it's really cool when you actually see like the science of how rare it is and how much is actually going on everywhere. It's pretty nuts. So thanks.
Thank you. It's a technical term. It's nuts. And yeah. Yeah. And, that's illustrative, is that
Want to raise our hand?
I've been using this, those 2 verses over 20 years, safe to say. Safe to say. And every day that I read them, there's something alive in them. And that's why we do it every day. But the critical thing is not to do it in a rote way. I can do a complete sadhana practice and, do something entirely, something else, and still do a sadhana practice and probably not miss a word, but I was never there. And because it's just that burnt in. But those 2 verses, I try never to take for granted. They're always alive. This opportune physical form is more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. You only gain its light the once. So hard to get, so easily destroyed. It's like a lightning bolt in the sky. Contemplate this and you will realize all worldly actions are but wind of chaff, and night and day you must extract some essence of this life. I, a yogi, practice in this way. You, wanting liberation, should do the same. It's become such a part of my life now that, as some of you notice, I'm even, we do our morning practice, and there's some commentary on that. I'm cutting that commentary out and putting it just by itself as a reflection every day. And so that's the depth of what, when we talk about 3 wisdoms, hearing a teaching, contemplating a teaching, meditation on a teaching, that I think I shared once. I was traveling to India. We were escorting my teacher's holy body back to India. And I was rooming with a monk, an older monk, and an elder, lived in a retreat for years, and we're sharing a motel room together. And and they're doing his practice. And I said, so what are you on? He goes, I'm on the preliminaries. 15 years later, he's on the preliminary practices of understanding of rare and precious human birth, of impermanence, karma, and that's what he's meditating on. And then throughout that whole trip, he was the monk who was never off doing something sort of frivolous. I was running around doing all kinds of frivolous. Oh, India, let me check this out. And he was like, you go, hey, we're gonna go here, and you go, what are you gonna do there? And we tell him, you go, no thanks. And then, hey, we're gonna go do this. What are you gonna go do? Oh, we're gonna meet Zone Rinpoche. Oh yeah, I'll go. Like he was like that. And I'm all like, I always wanted to get a straight razor on my head. Let me go get a haircut. And he's yeah. And so you can just see the depth of what was meaningful to him and what he chose to spend his time doing. All right, I'm guessing it was Kurt with the hand up there. You're
getting pretty good at guessing that stuff. I'm actually going to defer to Larry. He asked me where's the raised hand icon, and rather than try to explain it in a text, it's under your react button, Larry. But I'm going to defer my question to Larry. So there you go.
Larry.
Oh, what do you know, huh? Well, there's a couple of places in the practice that, after having done them for a while, it's kind of a double-ended concept. Like, how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were to abide in equanimity. If there isn't any them and us and me and you, then I am one of the sentient beings, and free of bias, attachment, and anger, may they or I abide in this way. I shall cause myself or them to abide in this way. Enlightenment, please inspire me to be able to abide in equanimity. What do you think of that?
How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were to abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May they abide in this way. I shall cause them to abide in this way. Enlightened ones, please inspire me to be able to do so. And you are, I think your question's around what if there's no them and no you to abide in equanimity. Is that correct?
Yes, enlightened ones, please inspire me to be able to abide in equanimity.
Right.
So,
yeah. And
there's another one, the beginning of the refuge prayer.
mm-hmm.
I take refuge in the Buddhist, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the positive potential I create, and so on. And through the positive potential that I create, may I become Buddha to be the benefit of all sentient beings, being myself.
Yeah. So let me try to get to the gist. So going back to the first one. We exist, right, conventionally, and we are in a human form, and we are in samsara. And so these practices as cultivating equanimity are wonderful. First, it's the aspect. How wonderful. There's four points. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were to abide in equanimity. Wouldn't that be wonderful if we were all free of bias, attachment, anger? Wouldn't that be wonderful? May they be free. Okay, now we've got beyond a reflection, we've got an intention. May they be free. And so I'm shifting from this wonderful aspiration to an intention. May they be free. And then we move into personal responsibility. I shall cause them to be free. And so now you're in a bodhisattva mind. You are committed to helping all beings be in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. And with that commitment, there's a pretty clear, direct line of what you're supposed to do, which is you need to abide in equanimity. Right? I'm not going to help anyone abide in equanimity when I'm not abiding in equanimity. So it says, okay, I want them all to be free of bias, attachment, anger. Therefore, I am going to become free of bias, attachment, and anger. Enlightened ones, please inspire me to be able to do so. Now we're requesting help. We're requesting help from the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, to inspire us, to support us in this. And that's one of the really, I think, beautiful things within Tibetan Buddhism. We do have this support, and they can't do it for us. You know, if Buddha could enlighten you, we wouldn't be doing any of this. But when we sit here and we think about all the support that we have, for example, we're here now. Why are we here now? We're here because of the centuries of practices of support, of practices of rituals that have been done through time that have created the conditions to provide for us to have access to these teachings, to engage in equanimity. And just bringing to mind, we have the altar behind us, we have water bowls, we have candles, we have inspiration, we have an opening, And the analogy often says that like a hallway with two doors. The Buddha's door is always open. He doesn't need to open ours. And so these are all skillful methods to open our door. The prayers, the aspirations, just the thought, may all beings be free of suffering, incredible. And then a thought that I'm going to help do that, incredible. And so these are skillful methods to open our door, to engage, to know that we have some capacity. And so as we go through those prayers, as we go through, the refuge, again, we'll be working through that in the stages of the path. Of course, I'm being helped. I sit there and I think, wow, when I do, like one of my sadhana practices based in Manjushri, all that's only possible because of all the others that have done it before me. And when I'm reciting a mantra, I'm reciting it from the energy of all those who have done it before me. And the lung and the transmission, the power. And I didn't make up this mantra. Even reciting a mantra, it's drawing from the energy, the prayers, the intentions, the aspirations of all those who recited before me. And it lives within that mantra. There's a force of all those. And so important to remember that we are the answer to their prayers. Because they said the same prayer. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were to abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. They made the commitment to engage in that path to make that possible for us. Pretty wonderful. Is that helpful, Larry?
Yeah, it's excellent. Thanks, John.
All right. Rita.
Thanks. And Kurt, that was generosity in action. I've been wanting to ask this question for a while. In the text we've been reading, it seems to suggest that becoming an arhat is potentially a step on the way to becoming a bodhisattva. And I read something like that in there, that once you become an arhat, then you naturally maybe want to move on to become a bodhisattva. And yet there's the whole tradition in Thailand where there are all these arhats, and I don't know if they're aspiring to be bodhisattvas. And my question is it okay if I just want to be an arhat and I don't want to be a bodhisattva?
It's okay if you just want to be a better human being.
Okay.
And yeah, there's a great talk by Bhikkhu Bodhi on these two paths. And the Buddha taught how to be liberated. And Bhikkhu Bodhi's take on this is he taught how to be liberated. That's how you become an arhat. And thus, he said, and this is how you free yourself. So he taught you how to be liberated from samsara, become an arhat. Later years, well, how do you become a Buddha? Which is a little bit different than being an arhat. And there is the bodhisattva path. The bodhisattva path is to become a Buddha. And but an arhat is free of samsara. An arhat is incredible being and free. And so, yeah. As a matter of fact, in the Lam Rim, they talk about the three motivations. And the second one is, a motivation of achieving liberation, being an arhat. It's one of the motivations of being a better human being with less suffering is, I think, a valid motivation, probably more honest than we really get down to it sometimes. So yeah, all good to engage authentically at the motivation that's meaningful for you, and things may ripen where it moves to another motivation. It may ripen, but yeah, perfectly okay. I would be, being an arhat is pretty amazing.
Well, because I feel like I wanted to be a bodhisattva for a long time, and now I'm tired and kind of angry and suffering and kind of disillusioned with a lot of sentient beings, not most of them, but a lot of them. And I just want to, and all the emphasis that we have here on bodhisattva, and I was like, do I really even belong? Is it okay? So thanks for that.
All right. Well, let's just take a little look. I did want to cover a couple things in the new text. Just to give an overview, the Lama Rim texts contain a series of topics to be learned, contemplated, and meditated on to bring about gradual transformation of our mind from negative to positive, from confused to clear, from unenlightened to enlightened. So, it's really that simple, right? We're moving from a more negative mental states to more positive ones, from more confusion to more clarity, from unenlightened to enlightened. Since the traditional Lama Rim texts were written in Tibet, where most people were exposed to Buddhist beliefs and practices from childhood, these texts assume a high level of familiarity with and acceptance of Buddhist worldview, particularly that of Mahayana Buddhism, because that's the Buddhism they practice there. It's like the water. It's what they're in. So right from the beginning, they mention such topics as rebirth, karma, cyclic existence, with its different realms of sentient beings, the possibility of attaining nirvana and enlightenment, arhat and Buddhahood, and so forth, as if these are common knowledge. Thus, they're quite different from the basic Buddhist books written by contemporary authors or textbooks used in a Buddhism 101 class at your local college. If you are new to Buddhism and find topics like rebirth and karma challenging, it might be best to start with more basic books. You can find some on the suggested further reading list. I think a little better advice is just to explore. We don't need to have answers. Maybe, maybe not. The Dalai Lama's recommendation is that newcomers to Buddhism should be taught the two truths and the Four Noble Truths, as these topics form the foundation of Buddhist thought and practice. Topic of the two truths is complex and profound. Entire volumes have been written about it. Basically, it means there are two levels of reality, conventional or relative. Our everyday experiences of people, places, activities, our own body, ourself, and the mind. I put that backwards. So, two truths: how we live in the world, how we experience things. We seem very independent. We can participate. Labels seem to fit, and how we function. I think of it as a functional reality. And then an ultimate reality, a deeper level of reality underlying the conventional, usually known as emptiness or voidness. It means that things don't exist as they appear. They're not inherently or independently existent. Everything's empty of that way of existing. So we've spent a great deal of time on that. Failure to recognize this lies at the root of our suffering. So genuine freedom and enlightenment depend on identifying this false mode of existence and seeing things as they are. More will be said about that, about emptiness later in the book. So those will come in the later chapters in wisdom. Let's see what else I want to give an overview. All right. I'm just going to pause it there. And so fundamentally what we're going to do beginning January, was it maybe 7th? If the 1st is a Wednesday, be the 8th. Okay. Is really starting to lay this sweet foundation to then start without any belief system whatsoever. Whether you are a human being with a scientific mind, and this is the only life you got, all the way to full Buddhahood. How can we engage in each of these analytical meditations in ways that would be productive for you as a human being that would like to engage in your life in ways that reduce suffering and cultivate understanding, connection, and a little more happiness, all the way to completely eradicating all causes of suffering and full Buddhahood. And my experience is that these specific meditations can cover the bandwidth. And we just start with a foundational thing, because the Buddha fundamentally says the answer is truth. So something's true or it's not. And there's layers of truth that unfold. And so you've heard me say 1,000,000 times. Well, lots of times. 1,000,000 might be an exaggeration. That the only way to approach these teachings is to check them, to test them, to challenge them, to see how they fit, what works, what doesn't work. And so we'll be applying those analytical meditations And that's what the Lama room does. They're analytical meditations. They're discussion points. There's this, and then, well, what about this? And we explore it. So during the year, what we'll do is we'll have the discussion of the analytical meditation, go back and forth, and then you'll have the opportunity in that week to engage in it, not just seated, but in your daily life, and see how you can gain some insight there, and see if we can't live with ultimately clear comprehension. And that's the goal I'm shooting for: clear comprehension, aware of what I'm doing, aware of my motives, my intentions. Is it right intention, wrong intention? Is it helpful or is it harmful? Is it cultivating causes for well-being or not? Is it based in reality? Am I coming from a place of understanding my subjective experience and interdependence? Or am I reifying, I'm me, that's it, that person's a jerk, this is the way it is? Or am I able to see that things are unfolding constantly in a flow? And the conditions that give rise to this, let me work on those underlying features instead of just the symptoms, instead of just treating the outlying symptoms of struggle. Why don't we work on the inner causes of them? And so that'll be the goal. And so my encouragement is to take some time over the holiday season here to, well, get the book. That'd be good. And I have no skin in that game. And during this holiday season, what can we do to be attentive, to give people our attention, to communicate, to connect, to really apply the perfection of generosity, giving of our time, not just our present, giving of our attention, making some time to put some effort in and not let it be robbed from you in a copy and paste world. And really see if you can remember what it's like to be fully attentive as you pour your own cup of, in this case, it's hot water or coffee, or you butter your toast, where your toast came from. And when we're reciting a prayer or a practice, remember where it comes from, and that you are the answer to those prayers as you engage in them. These are things that we can't be paying attention to when we're distracted. We don't even realize, we don't even notice. So much of life can come and go. And so we want to wake up from autopilot, engage in clear comprehension as best we can. Nice steady diet of, if you can even do 10 minutes of shamatha a day, do 10 minutes a day. But see if we can engage in ultimate self-care of a daily meditation practice and of bringing in that loving kindness and compassion into your actions and interactions. Be attentive. Be back to nature a bit with your nature. And see if we can't exercise that mind a bit. So that's my encouragement as we wrap up this year and think about, what does real self-care mean? We had that whole retreat in the fall on self-care, which is really setting ourselves up to be healthy and well mentally and emotionally. It's to be accountable. It's to be an active participant. It's to make sure I train my mind. That I engage in activities I'll feel good about tomorrow. real self-care. And then we'll reconvene on the 8th and dabble a little bit on unpacking this rare and precious life that we have. All right. Did you still have that thought, Kurt, or are you good?
No thoughts tonight. I was just letting Larry talk. I know. It's like, that's my Christmas gift to you, John. No complaints.
Kurt's thoughtless.
I appreciate all the thoughts you've generated this year, though, a lot, actually. It's been helpful.
Yeah. The way I take that is you have some equanimity. That's awesome. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, well, my heart is full. It's been such a wonderful year, and it was nice to get up to Gunnison and have our time up there together as well. And they have our retreats, 2 of them now up in Crestone. Next one will be in April. Of course, we have a New Year's retreat. And want to make some more opportunities for us to have some training in ways that are meaningful. So we'll be working on some opportunity there in the new year as well. But my heart's just so full to see such a ripe group of individuals and collectively the Sangha that we have become, and very grateful for that. And yeah, heart's full. So thank you all for all the effort that you do that creates the conditions for these opportunities for us to have our Sangha. So please be well. Take good care of yourselves. And before I say that, I don't think, Rachel, you do have anything to share, do you? Should I just kind of undermine it?
I covered it.
Yeah, I thought I did. Yeah.
Thank you.
January 11th. Oh, well, one other thing. I was asked to teach for the Center for Contemplative Research again, January 11th. So at Neo Something Ling, and that'll be online. And I think we already have at least the date posted on the website. The other thing is I will continue throughout the holidays to record our daily morning practice every day except Sundays. And we'll make sure that we include those 2 verses as a morning motivation as well. So I really enjoy doing that. And so that'll all continue, as well as the 7-point mind training.
Are you going to host the Tuesday morning practices?
Yeah, the 7-point mind training. Yep.
Of course. Sorry.
Hey.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that'll be going. It's just that the Wednesdays fall right on Christmas and New Year's. Everything else should be business as usual. No, it should be business as unusual. Yeah, it'll be business as unusual.
Through the 1st. So we'll miss.
Okay. So a couple weeks. All right, now I can see you all. I got back to gallery view. Okay, nobody's sleeping, right? Okay, just check. All right, well, please be well. Lots of love to you all. Thanks for all you do, and we will see you when I'm looking at you. Okay.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om